Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Trolleheim with your host, Rabbi Anibal. Thank you so much for tuning in, and welcome, Brenda, Anastasia, David, and I think that's it for now. Wow. Okay. I guess now that we are approaching the summer, people are going to start taking it easy. I don't know how many people in Winnipeg they went to the lake on the weekend already. They were probably disappointed because the temperature was lousy. But anyway. So welcome everyone. Coffee is back. So if you need to excuse yourself for a minute, go for a cup of coffee. That's fine. I won't get offended. If you leave the computer for a minute to go for coffee. So I hope you can hear me well. I think everything is working fine on my end as well. Welcome, Jerome. Welcome to the class. I hope the email went well. Did you were you able to send it, Jerome? Let me know. Otherwise, we'll find another solution. Uh, yes, it's too sad about the news. It is like we can have a break from that. We can have a break, and then you will see that mental health and guns don't blend well. We are learning that the wrong way. So yeah, it's way too sad. Way too sad. Uh, yeah. But today we are going to study Torah to uplift our spirits and to fight darkness with light. That's the whole idea, right? We fight lightness with dark. We find dark with light, darkness with light. That's why we study Torah, which, by the way, is a mitzvah to study Torah every day. It doesn't mean that you have to spend all day study Torah, but you should find a way to study a little bit of Torah every day. It could be through a podcast, could be through, there are different websites that they provide daily classes. Sometimes I get emails every time that they post a new class to this website, and I have emails all the time, which of course I have no time to go check them out. But I'm so happy that in this generation we have the opportunity to live whatever we want to live, and then you can find teachers all over the world. So I don't know if you ever stop and realize that how blessed we are in this generation that we have that opportunity, right? So you can pick one of these big scholars in New York, and I could be here in Winnipeg taking classes with a scholar in New York. It's amazing. Nowhere before in history Jews had access to such opportunities, but in this generation we can. So if we don't study, it's not because you can't find classes. In fact, the number of free resources that you can find, it's unbelievable. Welcome, Amparo. Welcome to the class. And yeah, and then if you go back in time also, not so long ago, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, to go and study with teachers, you have to pay for everything. And accessing to Jewish education was so expensive and exclusive and elitist. And now it's so there for the world. You don't even have to be a Jew to study about Judaism in these days. You can go to all this website and have, believe me, like world-class lectures from the best teachers around the world. So that's great. That's the way we fight darkness with light. we study, we improve ourselves, we do good deeds. That is what we're supposed to be doing. Not to allow the darkness to get into our lives. It reminds me every time that I read news like the two people killed outside the museum in the United States. Uh, every time I see like that, I have the image of Noah's Ark. Remember Noah's Ark, the description in the Torah, that it says that it has to be covered in what is the word they use there? Because uh, it has to be coated in a material that they wouldn't, it wouldn't allow the water to get to the inside. So if you think about it, in the middle of the flood, all the storm outside, it was crazy. It was crazy. But inside the ark, peaceful. It was peace. So sometimes that's what we have to do with ourselves. We have to coat our lives with something that it won't allow all the negativity to make it into our lives. And that is called Torah. That's why we study Torah, to cover ourselves. To Yeah, Brenda, you say waterproof. The ark was waterproof, but we should become like a bad news proof. So you won't allow, we won't let all that negativity to affect that to the point that we want to be revengeful or anything like that. That's why we study every day, to remind us of what is expected from us. Okay, so we are going to study today a little bit because it's a very long parsha. It's Behar and Bechukotai, two different parshiot together this week, and it's the end of the book of Leviticus. Which I was thinking, by the way, before the class, how we call the book Leviticus in Hebrew is Vayikra, but still doesn't say much of what we get from the book. Leviticus, it seems that you're going to get all this specific instruction for the Levites and the priests, which we do. We do have in the book of Leviticus, don't get me wrong. But there is so much more that to call the book, or to think that the book is it's just a book about priests and Levites, it's not fair. It's not fair to the book of Leviticus. We have some of the most beautiful verses in the Torah, like love your neighbor as yourself. That is a commandment for the entire Jewish nation, and it's in the book of Leviticus. So, yeah, it's not just about all the specifics of the temple, but also some of the most beautiful mitzvot to improve our lives, like love your neighbor as yourself. The other thing that we are going to read this weekend, and it's too bad because I won't be presenting a sermon to the congregation because there is a bat mitzvah, and the bat mitzvah is going to present the Dvar Torah this weekend. But there is an episode towards the end of the book of Leviticus where it says that you could make a promise or a vow back in the day, and taking your life as collateral to the vow. You take your life as collateral. What does it mean? Right? It's not that if you don't fulfill your promise, you're gonna be killed. But basically, what you said is, you promise something to God. God, if you give me this and this and that, or this or that is gonna happen, then I'm gonna have to redeem my life by its value. So what is the value of a life? Have you ever stopped thinking about that? What is the value of a life? Can you put a value of a life? Well, in this case, the Torah said there was a value. If you did such a vow, right? The Torah said, well, if you're a male over 20, then the value of your life is 50 silver shekels. Take it. Just like that. 50 silver shekels if you're a male over 20. If you're a woman, I think it's 30 shekels. It's a different value. And then if you're a kid, it's a different value, and so forth. It's fascinating the way it's said. But then in many other cases, you could take animals or other objects as collateral for a vow, And then it says, in that case, you don't know how much the value, the Kohen, the priest, is going to tell you how much that value. And then once the promise gets fulfilled, you have to pay that. Presumably to the temple. I'm not sure how it used to work in those days, but it's all in this parsha. You go read it, or if you connect with us this Saturday, you will see on the subtitles all this saga, all the promises, and how much a life is worth. Just saying. Okay, so let's study. Let's bring for you the material that I have for today. Otherwise, we are not going to be able to do everything that I want to teach you. So, one of the, as I mentioned before, Book of Leviticus is not just for Levites and priests. Has many day-to-day commandments, and this is a perfect example of how specific the Book of Leviticus is about the way we should behave. Because it's not just about, because again, think about it. All the rules for the Levites and the priest represent somehow or encapsulate somehow the commandments that they are related to our spirituality and to our connection with God. And so we don't want people to think that that's the important part of the Torah. So even the same book, the book of Leviticus, contains many commandments like this one that you have in front of you. Listen to this, because this is beautiful. It seems to be nothing to do with spirituality, but it does, and that is a mistake, because the whole idea here is that by being ethical individuals, we are strengthening our connection with God. Every time that you behave properly, we are removing impurities that they will stop the light of God to reach our souls. Think of it that way. And I explained this concept when we study about the high holidays and Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. We come to synagogue, we pray, we repent, and then what we do when you repent is you remove all the impurities that been accumulating around our souls, that it will stop the light of God to reach your soul. It's like never cleaning a window. If you never clean a window, eventually you won't have the outside light, and then when you don't have the outside light, you still need to function, so you will turn on an inside light so you can see. And again, it's exactly what happened with our lives, because we are not allowed, we are not allowing the light of God to reach our lives. Then we find we find ourselves reaching out to artificial things, or people, man-made things, if you know what I mean. We replace God with artificial things. And why we do that? Because we don't have the full extent of the light of God shining in our lives. So the more we clean up that spiritual window, the less we will need to rely on artificial things. That's the whole idea. So one of the ways we do that is by behaving ethically. So I will read for you and listen to the extent on how important it is for the Torah that we behave properly. It says, Leviticus 25, verses 14 and 17. When you sell property to your neighbor, or buy any from your neighbor, you shall not wrong one another. Okay? And then there is another verse on top of that. Do not wrong one another, but fear your God, for I, the Lord, am your God. Let me tell you what I like about this, is that the Torah starts by giving a specific example. It said when you sell property, right, or you buy property or whatever, don't cheat. Don't cheat on your business. And in this case, and I don't want to go to all those details, but it's very common in the Torah to give one example that includes many other things. Okay, it's very common in rabbinic writings as well that they go to one example that is an umbrella example. Is instead of going to the detail, they present something that is bigger, so that everything inferior will be included in that statement. So it's not just about property, it's about any other kind of transaction as well. You shall not wrong one another. But then, the Torah says, do not wrong one another, but fear your God. Why is that necessary? And this is because uh, you can find ways, and this is very common, unless, correct me if I'm wrong, right? Please use the chat to let me know if I'm wrong, that there are ways to legally cheat in business. Am I right? There are ways of legally cheat in business, right? That you know that is a trick, is a loophole. So if you become familiar with all these loopholes, well, technically it's legal what you're doing, even though you know that is wrong. It happens all the time, and we read it in the news all the time. Happen with corporations, for example, the way they avoid taxes and other things, which is perfectly legal, but you know that is wrong. So that's why after the Torah will give all these details on how you should not cheat on this and you should not cheat on that and you should be honest on this, you should be honest on that. Yes, Miss Janet, you said IRS loopholes. There are many things. There are many things. Because that's why after all the specifics, all the specific examples, the Torah will wrap it up by saying, do not wrong one another, even if I didn't mention the specific. Don't do it, but fear your God. Every time that the Torah will say, but, fear your God, it means, well, I know that nobody's watching you. There are no witnesses. Nobody will ever know that you cheated. Because there are many cases that you know that nobody will ever find out that you cheated. In those cases, when you know that nobody will find out because nobody can see you, God is seeing you. That's why he will say, do not wrong one another, but fear your God. God is watching. God is watching everything we do. Okay? So, any comments, please let me know, like the IRS loophole. But it's interesting, Miss Janet, you're telling me that you are from the United States with the IRS comment. Here in Canada, CRA. Canada Revenue Agency. I don't, I don't know how to say it in French, even though every time I receive a letter from them, it's written in English and in French. And it makes me shake every time I open the letter. There was a time that I was audited and I had to put together all the papers. It's ridiculous what you have to do. Ridiculous. And then there is always something missing, so you have to send something else. So, but you have to do the right thing, right? You have to do the right thing. Any comments, please let me know in the chat. Otherwise, I will continue with the next topic. And again, look at the content of these verses, right? Nothing to do with the temple. Nothing to do with coming to synagogue and praying to God. And yet, fulfilling these commandments, it is a spiritual matter as well. It is. Because not being nice to each other in business is a way to desecrate the name of God. Brenda, you said there are many examples that I could address, but probably wouldn't be very popular. Yeah, I hear you. Okay, so let's continue. And listen to this, what Rashi says here, because Rashi now is going to open another door. Or let me say it in a different way. Rashi is going to add more layers to just buying and selling real estate. Listen to this. Rashi says, the first verse refers to financial fraud. The second verse forbids verbal fraud, speaking hurtful words or giving bad advice. That is why the second verse add, but you shall fear your God, lest a person say, who will know that my intention was to do him evil? And it's true, because when you buy or sell a property, there is a paper trail and you have lawyers involved and other things. So it's more difficult to cheat. But there are many other situations in life where it's also cheating, even if we don't realize that. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that in a minute. Situations where we don't realize that is cheating at the same level of tricking somebody into buying or selling real estate. Just wait a minute. I'm going to tell you this. It's very interesting. And this is kind of things that sometimes I feel is important to even talk to our kids about it when they go to school so they can learn it early on. You will see what I'm talking about. But so listen what Rashi is saying here. Rashi said, first you have financial fraud. Everybody knows is bad. Everybody knows this is bad. But then he said, there is another thing that is verbal fraud. Verbal fraud is at the same level of financial fraud. And this could be many different kind of tricks that we play to each other by the words we use. Okay? The example here is giving bad advice, but we know that it can go way beyond that. Let's continue. Now, the Rambam will say the following. Listen to this. And similarly, lies, tricks, subterfuges, cheatings, or circumventions are forbidden. They said it is forbidden to deceive anyone, and even more so when it can lead to the desecration of God's name. For that is a great sin and imbues in a person bad traits. And all these wicked actions God explained that he will be disgusted with them and with those who perform them, as it says. For anyone who does these is an abomination of God. Let me go to the list that the Rambam is listing here. He says, lies, tricks, subterfuges and cheatings, circumventions are all forbidden and are all part of the same category. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever cheated at school? Have you ever cheated at school? Right? That there are different ways of doing it. Different ways. And we all know it's bad. But sometimes it's difficult to explain why is cheating at school bad. But if I tell you that cheating is a form of stealing, right? Because if I said stealing is bad, something is yours, right? Something is yours, I take it, that's bad, stealing. But cheating enters or falls into the same category, is stealing. Let me tell you this way. Sometimes you can see that, for example, in elementary school. Once you start going into high school and university, then you have to start understanding that all your marks all that you get at school could be potentially used in the future when you apply for a job. They have different candidates, they are very similar, so they will look at your qualifications or qualifications at school, your marks. If you cheated during your career and you get that job, you just stole it from somebody who didn't cheat. So cheating is a form of stealing. You can see this more clearly when you see, for example, professional athletes. And there are many cases of very famous athletes, Olympians, cyclists, weightlifters, baseball players, that they cheated during their career. They became, the top of the athletes of their time. And you know what happened when you get to the top? You get the contracts. You get the sponsors. You may even get, you know, get to be a feature in a Hollywood movie, or who knows, because you're at the top. But if you cheated your way to the top, you just stole it from the one who didn't get the sponsorship or the contracts because the person didn't cheat and you did. So that's why if we start looking at cheating from that point of view, then it changes completely. It changes completely if you understand that cheating is stealing. And I believe that, that's the way I talk to my son, and I believe that's the way we have to explain to the kids because they cannot see what's so wrong about cheating, right? Everybody does it. No. Although somebody may argue that if everybody does it, it's not cheating anymore. It becomes the norm. But that will be a different kind of discussion because it's never true that everybody does it. It's never everybody does it, unless that things have changed in this generation. Miss Janet, you said yes. I seen people. I like this. I will feature it. Said people cheat on their resumes. When they got the job, I had to train them because they cheated their way. But yet, you see, sometimes what I would think is, what if you didn't hire somebody, right, who maybe didn't lie on the resume, and it will be way easier to train because they have the capacities, right? That and this other person lied, and I don't know. I always think about that, and then you understand how cheating is stealing. So you get somebody who got a job by stealing it from somebody else. You will see with the same thing, like a runner that gets the gold medal by using steroids. It just stole it from whoever ended second. Is stealing. Cheating is stealing. Any other comments before we continue with this? Meanwhile, my coffee is waiting. Yeah, yeah, would be great if we don't cheat. Yeah, but you see here, this Rabbi Menashe Klein, he said something very interesting. He said cheating is a clear violation of Geneivat Da'at. That is the technical thing. Sometimes the way the rabbis call the cheating. Okay, Geneivat Da'at, and you may be familiar with the word Ganev, thief. The Ganev. In modern Hebrew, it's Ganav. The Ganav is a thief. Da'at is understanding or impression. So Geneivat Da'at is stealing, is talking about the kind of theft of thought, of what other people think, but it's a form of stealing. So cheating is a clear violation of Geneivat Da'at, both against a professor and against future employers who take grades to be a measurement of competence. So this is something that is being understood by rabbis and scholars, but I don't think we talk enough about this. Yeah. Brenda, you said, I remember how frustrating it was when other students will ask to copy my homework. I hear you. I used to actually, I was always very open about sharing everything that I do. I do it even today. I will give you an example where many years ago, I can't even remember when, Hazan Leslie and I, we did a duet of Elecha Dodi that the video ended up on our YouTube channel, okay? And there was a cantor from another synagogue in the United States, totally random, that requested, hey, is there a way that I can get a copy of that arrangement? And I believe within 45 seconds, I had it in my hard drive and I sent it to her. But I was always like that. With the homework was the same. I used to be very, I wouldn't say organized, but I was very like every time that I would take notes or do homework, I was very good at designing the page, at using different colors, and all that. And I remember uh, my classmates always asking my work to copy it. And then once I was in high school, they used to take photocopies there. I remember they used to pay. There was a room there. You paid, you will get the photocopies. But I never care. I never care for them to do that. I don't know. Maybe I should. And but it was clear that they never study, and I guess they finished the high school by never studying certain things because they were taking it from there. And so they can copy the homework, fail the test. Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes there were things that they were not so important for the test anyway, but there was it was a way of cheating because the professor will ask, the teacher will ask, so did you do that? Yes, of course I did. They didn't. They copied from me. Anyway, but you should know, always remember, and you can share it with other people. Cheating is stealing. Okay. So let me expand a little bit more about that. Brenda, you said you did the work and they got the credit sometimes, but I never care about that. You will see I do lots of things here to at Sharizedek. I never put my name at the end. So everybody will know that it was me, the one doing it. I'm not like that. I just don't do it like that. Anyway, I do a lot of things. Like the Sidur, the Haggadah, and things. I put it together and it's for everybody to enjoy. Okay, Genevadat. More about this. The literal meaning of Genevadat is in Hebrew theft of one's mind, thoughts, wisdom of or knowledge. So this also enters into the category of copyright, right? Like when you use somebody else's work, it's also Genevadat. Is also the same form of cheating. Okay, so thoughts, wisdom of knowledge, etc. Fooling someone and thereby causing him or her to have a mistaken assumption, belief, and or impression. Thus, the term is used in Jewish law to indicate deception, cheating, creating a false impression, and acquiring undeserved goodwill. Again, but that goes beyond lying. Any words or actions that cause others to form incorrect conclusions about one's motives might be a violation of this prohibition. One does not have the right to diminish the ability of another person to make a fair and honest evaluation, whether in business or interpersonal relations. And this enters into a gray area. For example, that there are many marketing strategies and advertisements that they could be a violation of Genevadat. But you see, in the modern world, it's getting more and more complicated, right? And yeah, Brenda, you said, by the way, the new video of Dor Hadash. Oh, that it was not Dor Hadash. That was not Dor Hadash. And let me tell you the story. Yes, that is my son and his friend Mason. And there was another kid. His name is Adam. He couldn't he couldn't come. His sister was sick for the day of the concert. Adam played the piano, so I had to go and play for them. I did the best I could. But they wrote that song for the Yom Ha'atzmaut Song Contest at Grey Academy, at the Jewish school. And when Leslie decided to invite them to come and sing at the concert, we didn't know how well or bad that song will do for this song festival, right? We just played by faith, and they ended up getting second place. So it was good. The first place was amazing, but they were very happy that they were able to perform it once again. And the kid who sang, his name is Mason, and he's having the bar mitzvah in the winter on a cruise, and he's a very good friend of my son. So we are going to his bar mitzvah on a cruise, and they are gonna sing the same song at the cruise for the party for that bar mitzvah. So, but it's good that they find ways to connect with Israel through music. So yeah, they wrote that song. It's the second year my son participates on that. But my son is in Dor Hadash, but that was not part of the Dor Hadash project. That song. Okay, so let's continue. Now, It says legally, it is only forbidden to defraud one's fellow. Okay, you should not cheat. You should not pretend to be something that you're not, etc. But listen to this. But a chassid must go beyond the letter of the law and take care of not to fool himself either. I like this because this is also something that we never talk about, right? They said you should never cheat. You should never fool somebody else. But what about yourself? What about yourself? Don't we sometimes lie to ourselves, and or we lie so much that we end up believing the lie, right? So it's interesting that we should also not fool ourselves. Brenda, so you will be officiating? Yes, I'm going as a rabbi, but it was a long story how that came to be. It's because I'm a friend of the family, and they did it through the Shari Zedek anyway. So yeah, I am going to that cruise. To be honest, I'm not a cruise kind of guy. I'd rather go to a beach in Mexico, but I will do it for them. Yeah. Any questions about the topic? So for those of you who don't know what Brenda is talking about, the song is called Land of Light, Land of Light, and it's on our YouTube channel. So you can search it there. You will see Mason singing. My son was playing the some kind of African drums. It's a beautiful song. I was playing the piano. Okay, so let's continue. Now, listen to this. How can you know something is wrong and yet do it anyway? Isn't that a interesting question? How can you know something is wrong and yet do it anyway? Oh, Brenda, you see, Stiesel. Yes, I saw Stiesel. I know how they were, ultra orthodox people, and they still do some shady thing. Absolutely, absolutely, shady things happens with religious and non-religious people. So this question is even more important. How can you know? How can you know something is wrong and yet do it anyway? Especially if you are religious. Plato thought it was impossible, but Aristotle thought otherwise. He called it akrasia, weakness of will. So in other words, you know that it's wrong, right? But you know, you're weak. You're weak, so you cannot control yourself. So nevertheless, you do it, even though inside, deep inside, you know that is wrong. He called it akrasia, weakness of will. The Bible begins with the most famous of all stories on this theme. Adam and Eve knew the fruit was forbidden, yet they went ahead and ate it anyway. Well, I can argue a little bit of that because the the snake tricked them right into understanding the prohibition from God. Look, it's not that it really forbidden. You're not understanding properly what God say. So so here we have an instigator that it was the snake. But yeah, I guess at the end of the day, they could have, if you have a doubt, you don't do it just in case. So they went and did it anyway. The reaction when they heard God approaching was to hide, forgetting, as we still do, we also forget that when it comes to bad behavior, you can't hide forever. Sooner or later, you will be found out. That's how paradise was lost. People, sometimes very intelligent people, can throw away their whole lives, their careers, their reputation, their future happiness because they can't resist temptation, because they think they can hide. They can cover up what they've done. They start by deceiving others, but they end by deceiving themselves. You see, it's the same thing. Sometimes you lie so much that at the end you start believing your own lies, which is why morality matters and why we should always heed the inner voice we call conscience. It's there to guide us from principle to practice. It's our satellite navigation system as we chart our course through the wilderness of time. Being honest to others is the best way of being honest to ourselves. And this is of course, the words of the famous Rabbi Jonathan Sachs. And that's why, by the way, when I teach, I always mention who the author was. Because if I would present this, pretending that this is I'm so smart that I came out with this, that will be also a violation of Geneivat Da'at, pretending that I'm something that I'm not. These are clearly the words of Rabbi Jonathan Sachs. And that's why, again, you will see every time I present a paragraph to you, I always write there where I took it from, who wrote it, uh, who wrote it for you. Yeah, it is very important to do that. Okay, so it is a struggle sometimes, but that is something that it takes practice, and many people, many rabbis will say that that's one of the reasons for the mitzvot, for the commandments, is to strengthen ourselves in all these areas. So when you eat kosher or you put on tefillin, you say, what does it have to do with moral? Well, kashrut, for example, the fact that you stop eating if some things and you eat others, even though you want to eat that. Because nowhere in the Torah says that eating pork is not delicious, right? I became kosher when I was 24, and I can tell you, pork and shellfish were delicious. That's not the problem. That is, it's not that we have to avoid them because their flavor is lousy. It's just a way, that's the way I understanding, to develop self-discipline. I still want, sometimes to eat the other thing, but I don't. I control myself because I said, no, I made a decision. I keep kosher, so there are certain things that, even though I know they're delicious, I don't eat them. So when you struggle with those decisions, it's exactly the same way you feel when you struggle with other decisions of things that you know that you should not do before you do it. So kashrut is a way of reminding us that there are certain things that they are proper, they are fit, and there are some things that they are not. And we go for the things that they are fit, and we avoid at all cost things that they are not. Same thing happens when we put on tefillin every morning. Is a reminder because the tefillin, the boxes that we put inside, contains Torah, and we strategically place the tefillin on our arm, which symbolizes the action, pointing to our hearts, symbolizing the feelings, and in our head, symbolizing the thought. So we do it every morning to remember that our action, our feelings, and our thoughts should be imbued by the words of Torah. Even when sometimes we are going to struggle because sometimes the feeling are going to tell us something that it goes against the Torah. So it's a reminder that in that case, we should not allow the thoughts and your action to do what is forbidden. Sometimes comes the other way around. Your thoughts will tell you something that is against Torah. So don't let your thought to affect your feeling and your action. And also don't let bad actions affect your thoughts and your feelings. So this is an exercise every morning. The more we understand this, or all the reason why we do the commandments, the better, because we can see how the beauty and the wisdom of the commandments can help us navigate life in amazing ways. So, Jerome, you say, same for fasting, control over the body to follow the commandment. Yeah, luckily we don't have too many fasts in the year in Judaism. But yes, fasting goes to the same place, to avoid doing something. And I think it's at the end of the day is to learn first to recognize the feeling. Think of it this way. Next time you fast or you have to go through these dietary choices, not only Judaism, think about if you are on a diet maybe, because your doctor put you in a diet, right? How learn to recognize the feeling when you want something that you know you shouldn't. You shouldn't eat, you shouldn't do, etc. You will see that the feeling you have when you want to eat something that is forbidden, or the feeling you have when you want to do something that is forbidden, are the same. What you feel inside is the same. So when you learn to deal with one, chances are that that skill is transferable to other situations where when you're in a position that you may do something that is not good. That is one of the things that we learn by paying attention of Jewish wisdom. Let's continue. Now, let's go to another verse from this parsha. It says, this is the second. Remember, I told you this week we have two parshiot, Behar and Bechukotai. So Bechukotai says, if you follow my laws and faithfully observe my commandments. Let me read it in Hebrew. Im Bechukotai teilechu ve'et mitzvotai tishmoru ve'asitem otam. Okay? So, if you read this without any kind of background, at least that's the way that I will approach it, I will have trouble understanding the difference between my laws and my commandments. Why is the Torah mentioning here two different categories? If you follow my laws and faithfully observe my commandments, aren't those the same things? Aren't the commandments the laws of God? Right? Well, yes and no. Technically, yes. Both are at a level, both are synonyms. Okay? But then when you start getting closer to those words, you understand that they are different type, or different kind of commandments. Commandments in Judaism comes into different categories. And I think sometimes it's important to understand that we have different categories of commandments. And for example, the most important two are the Hukim and the Mishpatim. Okay, two different. Again, both are equally important. Both fall under the how you could say the main category of mitzvot, of commandments. So you have mitzvot, that's a category, and then two subgroups within mitzvot, hukim and mishpatim. But they are both one and the same. The way or the why we have two different words is for us to better understand the essence of those commandments, not because one is more important than the other. And please, I want you to understand this, okay? It doesn't mean that one is more important than the other. Hukim are those laws in the Torah we seemingly do not know the reason for. So the ones we don't understand. For example, the prohibition to wear shatnez. Or forbidden mixture is like a shatnez is when you cannot wear in the same garment wool and linen together. Okay? Go ahead and tell me what's the reason for that. There is no reason. It's like it's in the Torah. So you should not wear in the same garment wool and linen together. Okay? Or for example, the prohibition of eating pork. The Torah doesn't give a reason for why we should avoid pork. Some people say, well, the pork is dirty, right? It has so many illnesses. Oh, really? And the chicken is so healthy. If you follow the news, you will see that they are all over the United States all the time, that they have to sacrifice millions of chicken because they have the avian flu and other things. The chicken also carry illnesses. Cow and lamb, and they also carry illnesses. So the real reason why we cannot eat pork is hidden to us. The Torah doesn't say why. Especially in this generation, what would be the problem? There is refrigeration. We have antibiotics, and we have other things that we can keep pork, cows, and chicken healthy if you need, right? So every time that you read a commandment and you don't understand the why we have to do that, congratulations, you found a chok. The plural is hukim. Okay? Just like that. To make it very simple. If you see something in the Torah said, why do we have to do that? Mazal tov. That's a chok. Then the other ones are the mishpatim. Okay, the mishpatim are laws for which we know the reason, even because they are super obvious or because the Torah will tell us why. Okay, example are the prohibition as of stealing or taking bribes or cheating like we studied today. Those are uh, these are laws that any normal and decent society will enact and in fact thus enact, right? So again, if I say, for example, the prohibition, if the Torah said, you shall not murder, do I have to explain that to you? Why the Torah says that? I hope not. If I have to explain that one to you, then we have a bigger problem, right? But we all know. And in fact, the rabbis will say that the mishpatim are the kind of commandments that even if God never revealed the Torah to humanity, humanity will figure it out by themselves. All those commandments are mishpatim. Now, the one that you need the Torah to learn, because otherwise, who will come out with the idea of not mixing wool and linen together or removing pork from the diet, unless it comes from God, right? Those are hukim, the two categories that we have. So the Rambam will take the all they think about the different commandments to another level, and he said, the Rambam, the eighth fundamental principles of Judaism is that the Torah is from heaven. Okay, it means that we must believe that this entire Torah, which was given to us from Moses, our teacher, may he rest in peace, is entirely from the mouth of the Almighty. Okay, so this is very interesting because it's not that we fulfill the mishpatim, the logical commandments, because they're logical. That's not the fact that we can understand them is a bonus, but that's not the reason why we do them. The reason why we do them is because they were commanded by God. That is an essence of Judaism, and it's kind of explained here by the Rambam. And the same reason why we fulfill also the mishpatim, the hukim, sorry, the one that they are illogical, the kashrut laws. We eat kosher because it's in the Torah, because God said so. All this is also true, continued the Rambam, for the explanation of the Torah, the oral Torah, which was also received from the mouth of the Almighty. The manner in which we today perform the mitzvot of, for example, the sukkah, the lulav, the shofar, the tzitzit, the tefillin, and other items is precisely the way that God, blessed be He, told Moses, who then informed us, the one whom God appointed as an agent is surely to be relied upon. So there are many things so we have the hukim, we have the mishpatim, and also the Rambam is reminding us that we also have the oral Torah. It's a belief within rabbinic Judaism. That is the kind of Judaism that we practice. Remember, the name of our religion is not Judaism, it's rabbinic Judaism. There were other forms of Judaism in the past. We got the Karaite Judaism, the Sadducee Judaism, and but the one that became mainstream is rabbinic Judaism, and we believe that there is an oral law, there is a set of laws that they were taught orally to Moses, and all that information was passed from generation to generation until at one time it was written down in the form of what we call today the Talmud. Okay? So, for example, the animals that we eat, that they are kosher, we have to slaughter them with a cut in the side of the neck. Nowhere in the Torah says how we have to do that. So how do we know that we have to slaughter the animals with a cut in the side of the neck? Oral law. We believe that was communicated from God to Moses, and so forth. There are many other things like that we do it because it's oral law. But it's also, the rabbis explain that the concept of the oral law is hinted in this week's parsha. Where so? Where so? What is the oral law hinted in this parsha? Leviticus 26:46. This it says, "These are the statutes, the ordinances, and the Torah with an S. In Hebrew is Torot in this parsha, that the Lord gave between himself and the children of Israel on Mount Sinai through Moses." So Rashi has to explain here because Torahs or Torot could also mean instructions. The word Torah could be referred to the Torah we read in the synagogue, or could also be any kind of instructions given to God. But so that's why Rashi explained here why the plural form Torahs. This denotes two Torahs, one written Torah and one oral Torah. It teaches us that all was given to Moses on Mount Sinai. And this is also from this parsha. Okay, so this is what I wanted to teach you today. So thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in and for attending this edition of Torah L'Chaim. It's always great to have you here sharing this virtual space so we can study together and we can, as I mentioned at the beginning of the class, we can continue fighting darkness with light. The light that we learn from the Torah, that it would allow us to become evil proof, right? The same thing that some things are waterproof. Doesn't matter how much water on the inside, the water doesn't come to the inside, so we become evil proof. Doesn't matter how much evil you see around you. The Torah is the best protection to keep our souls intact, so we can keep shining and we keep sharing light with the world. We never pay back evil with evil. We keep sharing light with humanity. So thank you, everyone. And remember, if you missed any part of this class, it's going to be rebroadcasted tonight at 8 p.m. Central Time, so you can watch it all the way from the beginning if you want. Otherwise, it's going in a few minutes. It's going to be sitting there on our YouTube archive, so you can replay it. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and stay safe. I hope to see you soon. Bye, everyone.